Hey guys, how you doing? This is JP Saricolia coming to you once again with another episode of Age of Heroes, my podcast. Welcome. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you at in the world. Welcome again. Now today I want to talk about the X-Men. We just got the Uncanny X-Men number 10, issue 10, which is actually the finale of the last chapter of the last series for the X-Men. And of course, it was a bombshell, so it was a bomb. They drop a bomb again. The X-Men, were disassembled, what's going to happen next? Everyone is wondering, all the circles, everybody's just, really sad, because of the world, has ended, for the X-Men. What's going to happen? I'm just trying to be a bit sarcastic. Maybe I'm not doing such a good job on that. But I was just, I haven't really, I'm going to be honest with you. I haven't read the X-Men in a very long time, at least newer stuff. I've been reading things here and there. I think it's been probably since last year I didn't read any of this Uncanny X-Men. I kind of follow up a little bit, through the forums, and I read some reviews about things, and I just, let it go. I'm coming to a point in my life where I feel that what else can happen with the X-Men that really can excite me, because to be honest with you, it's just the constant, pretty much, a recycling of the same stories time and time and time and time and time again. How many times have we seen the X-Men, pretty much being destroyed or disassembled, and no more mutants, they're, everyone goes their way. And how many times have been all put back together? The original cast, the original members go back. There's new members. People die. People survive. People, come to life. And on this one, of course, X-Men, which is Nathaniel Gray, he uses all his powers and pretty much reshapes the entire world to her image of what he wants the world to live. And of course, all the X-Men are defeated, at the last moment. So of course, he leaves the door open for a new rehashing and a new creation or rebranding something else, and new X-Men put together. Cyclops, who was killed previously, now survives at the end of the chapter. And of course, he shows up at the end of the chapter, and now it's his job, of course, to put all the team back together for the next run, for the next revamp, for whatever comes next. And it's pretty much the same thing that we have seen time and time again, million times before. Nothing new. Now, what I want to talk about today, and the reason I'm referring to this is because I'm really disappointed. I'm disappointed. A lot of people are saying, I'm going through reviews, this is a terrific story. See a lot of these reviewers online. It's phenomenal. Something's going to happen. Of course, some of the art on this was George Perez, which I love George Perez. He's a legend. And the art was good. The art is not the problem here. The art is not the problem. It's just the stories. To be honest with you, this is the part where I feel that it seems that Marvel has lost its way, and I have talked about this before, and probably this is going to be a rant throughout this podcast. Because it feels that Marvel is not really connecting. It's just rehashing things over and over and over and over and over again. Maybe if you're in your early 20s here, and maybe you just got into comics, maybe this is all new to you. Maybe you're excited. And I talked about it before, of course, that the company is trying to cater to the young audience because, of course, it's easy money. You have to think about the future. This is their X-Men, not necessarily my X-Men. But it comes to a point where you feel that it's just the same story over and over and over and over again, and there's no imagination. There is nothing new. There is nothing that really reshapes the X-Men, or at least revamps the X-Men in a way that is different. Of course, you have to realize the history of the X-Men since back in the 60s, since they were created. We have seen so many different stories, so many very epic stories. I was even reading a review where it was comparing this storyline to the stuff that Chris Claremont, was doing back in the day, which, it depends who you ask, because I love Chris Claremont stuff. I grew up with Chris Claremont stuff, but if I gotta be honest, going through all the Chris Claremont stuff, and, many fans will tell you that he was actually kind of running out of ideas. Not really running out of ideas, but Chris Claremont got to a point that he was he was just doing all kind of crazy stuff. The stories were getting a bit weirder and weirder and weirder. They were getting really weird. And, I love Chris Claremont. I love the stuff. But yes, there's a couple of things that he did that were a little off, completely off the table, a little off ground. But, he is a legend. But of course, I think that's at some point, when a writer writes a book for so long, there's so much they can put into that story that really builds the story up, which is something that you have to admire for those writers that have been in his book for so long and keeping it interested. But it comes to a point that, you explore so many different different things, different universe, different worlds. It's, you have much to give. And I say Chris Claremont is a very imaginative, is a very, has so much to give. But of course, it gets to a point that even he was having some issues even with some of his artists back in the day, because some of his artists were like, even John Byrne, who is also very, he is very, he has an open mind and he wants things his way. He was having conflict with him, because he felt that, the route or the direction that actually Chris Claremont was going was not what he wanted. That John Byrne that thought that this is not the way for the X-Men to go. So that's one of the reasons why he left. And then he went to the Fantastic Four, which is another great, when he did that, definitely it was phenomenal, because Fantastic Four were redefined, in my opinion, by John Byrne. That's when you have two very strong people working together, two strong artists, a writer, and, both were writers, and, even, John Byrne does more art, but he's also a writer. So they're both, clashing with their opinions about these characters. I'm not here to talk bad about Chris Claremont because I admire him, but I'm saying, there were people comparing this with what happened with Chris Claremont, which to me is just definitely not there. Whatever they're doing right now, and I've read some of the storylines recently, not necessarily this one. I would just read that synopsis of the story. So, I had to get up to speed with what's going on. I realized that it's just something that we have seen, like how many times before. There's nothing new here. I'm trying to compare it, unless you're swiping, the art and really, copying and just reshaping and repasting stuff, copy and paste. It's just the same thing we have seen before. And it's again another, we're going to revamp everything. They're going to bring the X-Men again and put it back together. And you know what? It comes to a point that you don't even know who the X-Men are, because from the original X-Men and from the X-Men, they keep adding, creating more and more and more characters that you lose, in reality, that cohesion of a team, that family, really, feel that always the X-Men had, like the Fantastic Four. When you think of Fantastic Four, you only think about 2 or 4 characters, bottom line, and maybe some other supporting characters. But you always think about, Reed Richards, you look at Sue Storm, Johnny Storm, and you think about Ben Grimm. Those are the Fantastic Four. And when you think about the X-Men, depending on what era you grew up, you're always going to think about the, Professor X. You think about Cyclops, of course, Jean Grey, of course, Wolverine, now, of course, something that was, revamped back in the, late 70s, of course, you see Colossus, Kitty Pryde, you see all that. But of course, now there's so many X-Men, so many different new X-Men that it's just, it loses. It's actually that cohesion and understanding, because, trying to keep up with all this nonsense that they keep adding is just hard to swallow. And what I want to talk about it today, and I already want to extend myself through the introduction, it took me 8 minutes just to get the introduction part. It's just that when is it that Marvel is going to understand that the only way to keep a character is fresh and new is not about just reshaping or revamping or repeating the same things time and time again. It's about giving them a story that really, really matters. And sometimes what you need to do is put those books aside, and you maybe need to give them a rest and try to come up with other characters. Not within the same, because the X-Men are the X-Men, not trying to keep adding more characters to the X-Men, but creating solo characters or another solo teams or superheroes on an alternate universe, or perhaps within the same universe, but a totally separate entities from the ones we've already seen. Trying to reinvent the wheel and to repeat the same thing time and time again, it's not really helping, this storylines. All it does is just, pretty much what it does is put people down. It really makes people, just to think twice about buying comics again. It's like, you come to think of it and you say, why do I buy comics like this? And, if it's going to be the same thing that I read before, I might as well just keep on reading what I read before. Go back to my old books, my old stories, because it's just the same thing. It's nothing new, nothing refreshing, nothing that really has any literal value. It doesn't have any anything that adds to the whole, pretty much understanding of these characters that makes him unique or better or more, it gives him, an in-depth view of them. It gives us a clear view or perhaps makes it more interesting to us. It doesn't. It becomes a travesty of what we already know. And it feels that it's just unnecessary. Like many characters are easy to understand. For example, I understand Spider-Man. I understand even when they change things. Spider-Man is a basic world. It's a very Spider-Man has one of the best cast of all, because all the characters have give weight to Spider-Man, but it's a very small circle of people around Spider-Man, even villains. So you can understand Spider-Man, you can pick up, I can go back and read some of the Spider-Man stories. Maybe I have to keep, understand that of course some things have changed with Spider-Man, that some things were taken away of the fact that he was married and they reshaped that. And that's a theme for another podcast. But the thing is this, you understand for the most part who Spider-Man is and his world, Peter Parker's world. Now, and you do the same with the Fantastic Four. The Fantastic Four has a very a core of enemies that around and surround, the Fantastic Four. The same with the Avengers. There's always been many different Avengers and different iterations of the Avengers and actually different members that have added, but for the most part is the basic team, the basic people. You always have, Iron Man, Captain America, the Hulk has been part of the Avengers, you have Black Panther, all these basic characters, Black Widow, you have Nick Fury that is involved in somehow. So all of those things you cannot understand. Now with the X-Men, the basic X-Men, but they have rebranded the X-Men in so many different ways that they have watered down what the X-Men are, and it gets so confusing to try to keep up with everything when they take away the mutant, gene, when they kill it, when there's no more mutants, when they kill this one and they survive and they fight other mutants. Now you can, save the mutants and now the mutants cannot be saved and then they can be resaved and then someone is a mutant that come from the future. It just, it gets to the point that it's completely confusing. And you get so confused about reading comics that, say, what, I'm just going for something easier, something more digestible, something that is simpler to me, something that I can understand. I can understand Batman world. I understand their villains. I understand, how everything operates in Batman world. It's a very small circle of people around Batman. It's a very small circle. It's easy to understand. This is the situation. What it really surprises me is that regardless of that, the X-Men are still some of the most popular characters in the Marvel universe and in comics. Of course, even though they're very popular, it's like they've been, I don't know, the stories have been raped so much, and I'm using this expression with some respect. They've been so twisted to the point that it's just unrecognizable. The stories are unrecognizable. The characters are unrecognizable for what they started and where they were before. And, it is definitely disappointing. Now, would I say that this will change and make, that the Marvel will understand? I don't think so. I don't believe that Marvel can change that, because to be honest with you, to really change Marvel from the core and the way they do things, it means that you have to change the people that work at Marvel. This generation needs to go and bring a new generation. Now, the problem with the new generation or whatever comes, can they really change this mindset of constantly rehashing the stories? The problem is that we live in a social media, world where people tend to forget things very quickly. And sometimes companies, they bank on that. What they do is that they keep repeating. It's rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat is all you get to see. And they think, well, people will forget. Even if the stories are bad, people will forget in 10 months because, everybody's so embellished in some other things. We'll bring him back. We'll bring something new again. Oh, we give him this. Now it's going to be, now the leader is Cyclops. Then, for a year, he's this leader. Then he gets killed. Now Wolverine is the leader. And then when he gets killed, now Colossus is going to be the leader. And, it's the same thing time and time again, but it's just the same thing. Oh, and now, Colossus is going to be, I don't know, he's going to turn gay. Or, or Iceman is going to be, I don't know. Like now Iceman was always a woman, that was disguised as a man. Or, now Kitty Pryde, she gets pregnant, and then she's not pregnant. You know how it is. It's just unbelievable, what they do in order to bring the woke factor and try to, I don't know, plead the case that they're being political. They're trying to be sensitive to every person and every part of the society. And I'm not here to diminish what people do in their personal lives. But I'm saying, if you're going to create a story that really matters. Create a story. I'm going to the end of this rant because I'm really getting heated with this. It's just unbelievable that, that we still seeing this in comics. A lack of understanding from writers and editors what really makes a story thrive. I'm not against bring diversity. I'm not against, gay characters. I'm not against black characters. I'm not against minority characters. I'm not against even powerful women in stories. What I'm against is the poor understanding, the poor writing, the poor stories, and the constant repetition. The constant redoing the same thing time and time again and just doing over and over until it's just so tiresome that people lose the desire to read the stories. It kills the stories. It kills people to come. People are not interested in this garbage. I'm sorry. I'm not interested in this garbage anymore. I want real stories. And you know what? This is why there's an exodus of people from comics. And they're going into movies, because it's easier to understand. I'm going into video games because the stories are more interesting than this, pile of trash. It's just the same thing. Maybe it's me. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe people say, well, JP, you're being too strong. Maybe you're being rough about it. Maybe you're just insensitive. Maybe you're just old fashioned, and you know what? So be it. I want to be old fashioned. If being old fashioned means that I like, I have taste in good storytelling, then by all means, call me old fashioned, call me, whatever, a bigot or whatever. I don't mind. I don't care. If people say stuff about me, because at the end of the day, I know who I am. I know what I like and I know what really works. In my experience, what really works sells. And the bottom line is that sales, even though they try to make it look, Marvel did so many sales at the top of this year, compare that to 5 years ago, or 10 years ago, 15 years ago, 20 years ago, then you'll notice the difference. Now, of course, they talk about how much money they make. Well, normally, how many copies they sell. Compare just the copy numbers and also compare the price of the copies compared to what it was before. And you will see there is a big gap and a big difference. The only reason Marvel stands today is the fact that they are producing movies. Or, in this case, Disney's producing movies and they still producing movies on their characters and their licenses. That's the only reason why they stand today. Because if it wasn't for that, I'm telling you, Marvel will be, closed doors long time ago. And the same happens with DC. They keep doing that. They're not interesting. The stories are so convoluted that it's not, making any difference. I want the stories to stand. I like the X-Men. I love the X-Men. But just give me some stories that are good and are interesting. I love the X-Men. I always do. But this idea of constantly destroying the team and putting it back together with different versions or with different characters. And in this case now, Cyclops, who was always the Boy Scout, becomes a bad boy. Come on, man. Come on. Or X-Men gets all nice and, now he's a teacher, I love the story, by the way. I love in this case, the art, that when he was doing that, he was actually the one in charge of the team. But to be honest with you, really, Wolverine, from all the people who is always, I like his image as the bad boy. He is good as that because that's his innate nature. That's who he is. But, people say, well, if you change that throws everything off and makes him interesting. I'm sorry, but that's just garbage. That's not interesting. That just throws everything that it is. And you know what? I'm making this podcast and I think I'm having fun with it. Sometimes I just want to rant and I just want to say how I feel. I don't know. What do you think about this? Maybe I'm just going too crazy. Maybe I'm too old for this. But, bottom line is, I'm just get to the point that what else? What else can you bring to the table that makes it interesting? I know that that's tough. It's a tough answer and it's a tough question. And I don't think that most people know the answer. What really can change that? In my opinion, I think they need to give it a break. Give it a break. Just like they did with the, Fantastic Four. Yeah, people were crying that the Fantastic Four put down. But you know what? It was good for a time that they were not doing anything with the Fantastic Four. It was good. It kind of gives people a rest. So they can come back and hopefully with everything now with Dan Slott and everything they're doing right now, hopefully they can come up with some really nice stories for the Fantastic Four. I'm be glad, for that. Because, reality, we want the Fantastic Four back again. But I think Marvel need to start exploring other ideas. They need to start creating ideas. They need to start coming up with, with characters that are bigger than life. Explore those characters, make stories about it, Marvel still does it, just what happened with the Guardians of the Galaxy. Love the Guardians of the Galaxy. This new version of the Guardians of the Galaxy, I love it, I like the originals and I like the ones that came after, but I think I never was as interested with them until, of course, this new Guardians of the Galaxy. Love them, why don't you keep creating teams like that or groups like that or superhero stories like that? Just keep creating characters, not just to please one single group or just to please some minority. No. Make something that is more appealing for everybody, and regardless of it. I love Black Panther and I'm not African American. I love Black Panther because he's an interesting character. Do the same thing. I love that. I don't have to be part of this. If you want to appeal to me, don't just create a Hispanic character just to appeal to me. Create a Hispanic character that is appealing for everyone. That's what I'm talking about here. Make a character like a Hispanic character, Hispanic superhero that is appealing to everyone. That's what you need to do. This is what really showcases marvelous, very excellent writing and storytelling. If you're able to create a character that can just cross, boundaries and can be interesting for anyone, that makes the difference. But what is your opinion about this? Are you agreeing with me or disagreeing with me? Do you think I'm crazy? Do you think I'm just going overboard with this? I would like to hear it. Definitely, I'm a comic book fan. I'm not always claiming to be right. I'm always wrong. If I'm wrong, just share it with me. Share it with me. Let me know. I would like to hear it. I'm always open to listen to the commentary and, and to respond and have a civil conversation. So once again, thanks for listening to the podcast. It is always a pleasure talking to you. Please stay tuned. This is my last week at work, and actually, I'm pretty much after today. I'm pretty much self-employed. I'm going to be working on this podcast. I'll be working on this, my channel. You'll see daily content and a lot of better content. I'm going to explore better things for this podcast. We'll see how things go. Please consider supporting this channel. Consider supporting my podcast. You can do that through my Patreon account. Also, if you cannot do it, I understand. That's not a problem. Please please comment. And please subscribe, because with that, you're actually supporting my vision and everything I do. And share the podcast. You can share it on your Facebook. You can share it just the links. You can share it to Twitter. All the links are below. You can download it, and you can like it, and you can subscribe to my podcast through the different through Stitcher, through Spreaker, through iTunes. You name it. You can do it in a lot of places. So once again, God bless you. Have a great weekend. I'll talk to you again. Bye-bye.